want to just recap briefly what I spoke about 2 weeks ago and continue with that topic, inshallah. So, a fortnight ago, I spoke about Zainul Abidin, who is the son of Imam Hussein. And the reason for that is because we were in the month of Jama'at al-Awwal, and in the month of Jama'at al-Awwal, we find that there were many Ahlul Bayt who either they were born or died in this month. And what I mentioned was that there are many great personalities in the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which unfortunately we don't know much about. So you have Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, but we have 15 centuries of great personalities, male and female, from their lineage. So for example, Imam Hussein, his great son is called Zainul Abidin, who we'll learn about today. His son was Imam Baqir, a great scholar as well. His son was Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, who was a teacher of Imam Abu Hanifa and the teacher of Imam Malik. There are so many great individuals from the Ahlul Bayt. Even from Imam Hassan, his great-granddaughter was called Sayyidina Nafisa. Now, unfortunately, as a Sunni community, as Sunni Muslims, we have not really focused much on the love of the Ahlul Bayt. When I went to Egypt back in 2006, it's the first time that I heard of the great lady called Sayyidina Nafisa. I should have heard about her since childhood. Sayyidina Nafisa was the teacher of Imam Shafi'i, and she was the great-granddaughter of Imam Hassan. And whenever Imam Shafi'i had any sort of difficulty, he would go to her for advice and du'as. So it's important that we revive this tradition of learning about the Ahlul Bayt, because our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he ordered us, he commanded us as elders and as parents that we should adbitu awladakum bi thalathin, like you should nurture your children in 3 things. Number 1, the love of him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Number 2, the love of his family. And number 3, the recitation of the Quran. So we mentioned Zainul Abidin, and I talked about 3 qualities that are quite outstanding in him. And again, unfortunately, a lot of the stories regarding him are still in Arabic and Urdu language. So I hope that in future we will see more content in English on Zainul Abidin, Imam Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and Sayyidina Nafisa and so on. So the first quality I mentioned about Zainul Abidin is that he was somebody who always showed goodness to those who wronged him. And these 5, I'm going to mention 5 qualities today of Zainul Abidin and try to relate them to Isa alayhis salam as well, because now we're in the month of December and it's important for us as Muslims, when people are celebrating Christmas, it's important for us to remember that Isa alayhis salam is our prophet, he's ours, not the Christians. So we should think about what are the qualities that he demonstrated that we can learn from. So I'm going to mention 5 qualities of Zainul Abidin, and how those 5 qualities were taught and demonstrated by Isa alayhis salam as well. So Zainul Abidin was such an outstanding personality that somebody in his time, they commented that if there is anybody in our era who manifests the great qualities of the prophets, it is Zainul Abidin. So he was a great man. The first quality in Zainul Abidin was the good character to those who wronged him. And the example that we gave was that when Zainul Abidin, when his family, Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt, when they were killed, they were martyred in Karbala, in Iraq, then Zainul Abidin, he went and led a quiet life in Medina. A quiet life where he would have a guest house where he would welcome people and he would teach them and also serve them food as well. And what we mentioned was that one of the soldiers in the army of Yazid, he got into some sort of trouble with the authorities, so he fled Iraq and he went to live in Medina in the house of Zainul Abidin. And for 3 days, Zainul Abidin served him food and was very good towards him. And after 3 days, the soldier, he said, I feel so ashamed of myself. I recognize you, but perhaps you did not recognize me. I'm actually one of the soldiers in the army of Yazid who are massacring your whole family in Karbala. And I'm so ashamed of myself that this is what I did to you, and look how good you are to me. You serve days. So Ali ibn Abidin, he said, I in fact recognized you from the day that you stepped into my house. I recognized you for 3 days. But that's your character. This is our character. We are not like you. You're not our teacher. Our role model is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So even though you are bad to me, I'm still going to show good character towards you. And this is very difficult to do. And if you relate this now to Isa alayhi salam, we find that there are many statements of Isa alayhi salam in the hadith collection. So quite often, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would tell us that Isa alayhi salam said this and he said that. So one of the hadith mentions in the collection of Imam Ahmad, Muslim Imam Ahmad, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that Isa alayhi salam told his people that al-birr, goodness, is not doing good to those who are good to you, that's just returning a favor. But Isa alayhi salam told his people that true birr, true goodness, is to be good to those who have wronged you. And that's very difficult to do. It's easy if your neighbor gives you food and you return food to them. Your neighbor is nice towards you and you're nice towards them. It's very difficult though if somebody is not nice to you and then you humble yourself and you show goodness towards them. So that's the teaching of Isa alayhi salam when he defined what al-birr, what goodness is, and that was demonstrated by Ali ibn Abidin as well. The other example that we gave as well was that once Ali ibn Abidin was walking in the street and somebody began to swear at him, somebody began to curse him. And then Sayyidina Ali ibn Abidin, he said, let him continue, let him say whatever he wants about me. Because everything that he's saying about me, everything that he's criticizing me about, that is inside me. I do have all those flaws, and if he knew what I'm like in private as well, in my private life, that's even worse. And when he said that, the man felt ashamed of himself and stopped cursing Ali ibn Abidin. So through good character, Ali ibn Abidin, he was able to win over the hearts of people who wronged him. When he saw people who wronged him, who cursed him, who were bad to his family, he was good towards them and he won over their hearts. And this is the teaching of Isa alayhi salam as well. So there's a story about Isa alayhi salam in the Islamic tradition as well, that he was once walking and there were a group of rabbis. Some of the rabbis, they did not accept him as a prophet. So they cursed him. They walked past him, the rabbis, and said to Isa alayhi salam, curse be upon you. And then Isa alayhi salam, he replied to them with words of salaam. He replied to them and said, peace be upon you. So the disciples of Isa alayhi salam said that these rabbis, they said la'nat upon you, and in return, you said salam upon them. What's that about? So Isa alayhi salam, he said that vessels pour forth what they contain. Vessels pour forth only what they contain. These people, they contain rubbish inside them. And that's why their hearts are filthy. That's why they curse me. But my heart is not like their heart, alhamdulillah. So even if they're going to curse me, I'm going to reply to them with what Allah has filled my heart with, which is feelings of love and mercy and forgiveness. So that's the first lesson we can learn from Isa alayhi salam and Ali ibn Abidin. Try to be good to those who wrong you, so that you can win over their hearts, so that your enemy and those who are hostile towards you become a friend of yours. And if we behave like that towards other Muslims and towards non-Muslims as well, then inshallah that's something that can help us to win over the hearts of these people. The second quality of Isa alayhi salam and Ali ibn Abidin is their humbleness. You cannot be good to a person who has wronged you unless you are a very humble person. And in this regard we find that the people of Makkah, they once saw somebody holding the cloth of the Kaaba and crying profusely, all night crying at the cloth of the Kaaba, holding it and saying, Ya Allah, please forgive me, because there's nobody on the face of this earth who's worse than me. There's nobody who's more sinful. And when they saw this person crying all night, they went and they saw this was Ali ibn Abidin. He was the best person of his time, and yet he was crying profusely in the court of Allah and saying, Ya Allah, there's nobody worse than me. And this is the quality of the awliya and of the prophets. Many of us from the Indian subcontinent, the scholars there, many of them consider the greatest wali, the greatest saint of Allah to be Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani rahimahullah. Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, one of his outstanding qualities was he was the most humble person. He said about himself that he saw a dream in which he saw the doors to Jannah. So he saw some people were lined up at the door of Salah, of these good acts, they were all crowded, they were all full. And then I came across the door of humbleness, of tawadu, and I found it to be empty. And so I entered it. So humbleness is a rare quality nowadays. And that's something that we can learn from the life of Zainul Abidin and from the life of Isa alayhi salam as well. And we know from the Islamic tradition as well as the Christian tradition what a humble life Prophet Isa alayhi salam lived. The next quality, and I just want to add to this as well, that we're talking about Zainul Abidin and Isa alayhi salam, but we see the awliya of our time that they also embody these qualities. We see the shuyukh, the awliya that we were blessed to be with in this country or in Egypt. They are good towards those who are bad towards them, and they are the most humble. So we see some of our shuyukh, for example, who are some of the leading ulama in Britain and Europe, and we would find them even in their old age serving food to their students, straightening the shoes of their students, and even doing things like cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the toilets. That's something common amongst the awliya in order to humble themselves. And this is something that we should also do as well. When you serve people, clean up after them and so on, this creates humility inside you. This is the quality of the awliya of our time as well. Habib Umar was one of the leading scholars in Yemen right now. In fact, recently there was a publication called the Muslim 500. The Muslim 500, you can find it online. It's a publication which shows the 500 most influential Muslims in the world. And this year, they actually put Habib Umar as number one, as the most influential Muslim in the entire world. And Habib Umar, he's got a great seminary in Darul Uloom in Yemen, and he's produced many great scholars. And he said that the day that I think that I am better than any of my students is the day that I will close this Darul Uloom. I think that I am the worst of people, and all my students who come to me, even though they're very young compared to me, I see myself as more sinful than all of them. The day that I start to think a little bit that I'm better than so-and-so, even one of my young students, I will close this Darul Uloom. So even in our time, we see the great awliya that they are the most humble of people. The third quality then, apart from being good to those who are bad to you and being very humble, the third quality of Isa alayhi salam and Zainul Abidin was the secret charity that they would give. So we mentioned that Zainul Abidin, when he died, there were 100 families in Medina who found that the food rations that they would receive every night stopped. So it was only when Zainul Abidin died that people found out that it was him who was coming to their door every night in Medina and giving them secret charity, money and food. And again, this is something that Isa alayhi salam also emphasized. Isa alayhi salam, he advised his disciples, as mentioned to us in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Isa alayhi salam said that when you are fasting, you should put oil on your lips, on your face, on your hair, because you don't want anyone to know that you're fasting. So fast in secret, because when you're fasting, your skin will become dry, your lips will become dry. So put olive oil on your face and on your hair so you look fresh in front of people, so that they don't know that you're fasting. Keep that a secret between you and Allah. Do secret good deeds and secret charity. And Isa alayhi salam, he said that when you're praying, draw the curtain of your house. Keep your prayer secret between you and Allah. And then he said, because a lot of people are always attention seeking, always seeking attention of others. He said that, the praise and the love that people have for you, the respect that people have for you in the heart, that is risk. It is risk. So the same way that we believe that our money, our job, our health, this is all risk that comes from Allah. In the same way, we find even the awliya of our time, many of them do secret good deeds. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He causes people to know about it and to praise them. I'm just remembering now one of our teachers, Shaykh Imran, who was the principal of the seminary where I studied, that when he was in Milton Keynes and Highway Come, he was the imam there, and every night he used to be cleaning all the toilets and the wudu area secretly. People would come in the morning and they would think, wow, this is such a beautiful, nice ablution area, this mosque, I wonder who's been cleaning it. And nobody knew for years. The day that he left the mosque to move to Nottinghamshire to open his Darul Uloom, and then people found the toilets and the ablution area becoming dirty, that's when they found out that this is the man, our imam, our shaykh, our spiritual guide, is the one that's been cleaning secretly for years. So, secret charity is very important, as the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, and this is something that Zainul Abidin used to say. Zainul Abidin, he would do secret charity,
and he would repeat the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that inna sadaqata la tudfi'u ghadab ar-rabb, that secret charity withholds the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa tadfa'u an bayna as-su', and that secret charity not only does it withhold Allah's anger from punishing you, but it saves you from a humiliating death as well. If you want to die a noble death, Allah is telling you that you must give secret charity. The fourth quality, just finish because we are out of time, but there's so much that we could say here. The fourth quality of Zainul Abidin is this nickname of his. His name was Ali, but he was called Zainul Abidin, the adornment of worshippers, because he used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most. It is said about him that from the moment he woke up in the morning until the moment he slept, he would do as many as 1,000 sujood. He would go into sujood as many as 1,000 times a day. And so Imam Zuhri, a great hadith scholar of his time, named him Zainul Abidin, the adornment of worshippers, that nobody does as many sujood as him. And of course we see Isa alayhi salam teaching the same thing, prayer, lots of prayer and secret prayer. And Zainul Abidin is also called As-Sajjad, the one who's always in sujood. So what we can do to implement this in our lives is, again, I'll mention one of my teachers, a teacher I was mentioning, Shaykh Imran, that since I was young, I met him maybe 20, 30 years ago now. Ever since I met him, I've never seen him miss the optional prayers. So for example, the Isha prayer, you can just read 4 fard, Maghrib prayer, you can just read a 3 fard, and that's sufficient for you. But the awliya, those who want to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they never ever miss their sunnahs, and they never ever miss their nafal, the mustahab acts. So our teacher, I've never seen him in 30 odd years that I've known him, whether he's traveling or whether he's at home, he always prays the full prayer. The 12 rakat of Dhuhr, the 8 rakat of Asr prayer, the 7 rakat of Maghrib, and the 17 rakat of Isha. And this is how we get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it depends how close you want to be to Allah. Shaykh Imran rahimahullah, great scholar from the subcontinent in the last century, he says about himself that when he went for Hajj and he prayed the fard of a salah and he missed the sunnahs, the 4 sunnahs which are optional beforehand, then he slept and he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you, as a great scholar and as somebody who is from my lineage, you ought not to be missing my sunnahs. So when we actually make up for the sunnahs and the nafil prayers, that's when we get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ali Zainul Abidin, why he has that great rank with Allah, is he would do so many sujood. So let's try to instill that in our lives as well. Try to read as many sunnahs and nafil prayers and secret prayers as you can. And the final point I mentioned is that Ali Zainul Abidin, he was not just a great worshipper, he was a great scholar as well. So some of the great scholars that we hear about, like Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, who compiled all the hadith together in his time, he was actually a student of Ali Zainul Abidin. So Ali Zainul Abidin, alongside being a great worshipper of Allah, he was a great teacher. And Imam Zuhri, who was a student of Ali Zainul Abidin, was the teacher of Imam Malik. So the Ahlul Bayt, they were great scholars and great worshippers as well. So I'll just summarize the 5 qualities again of Isa alayhi salam and of Ali Zainul Abidin. That the first thing is that they showed beautiful character to those who wronged them. The second thing is they were incredibly humble and they thought of themselves as the lowest of people. The third quality of Ali Zainul Abidin and Isa alayhi salam is that they would encourage people to do secret charity. The fourth great quality in them is that they would worship Allah a lot, as many as 1,000 sujood in a day, and again secretly. And the fifth quality is that they were great scholars, they were great teachers. The Christians also mentioned that about Isa alayhi salam, even the Christians say that Jesus is mentioned, he's addressed by people 90 times in the Quran, in the Gospels, and the 90 times that Isa alayhi salam is addressed in the Gospels by people who are asking him questions, 60 of those 90 times he is called teacher, dear teacher. So he was also a great teacher as well. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to act upon what's been said. May Allah make us humble. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to be good to those who wrong us. May He enable us to give secret charity, to do many more sujood, and also to devote ourselves to learning and to study. And I'd just like to finish with a note about the women as well. We've talked about 2 great people today, Ali Zainul Abidin and Isa alayhi salam, and these great qualities in them. And we should mention, before we finish, that behind every great man is a great woman. or as one of my students said when I told her this, she said, no, not behind every man, besides every man. Besides every great man is a great woman. So with Ali ibn Abidin, he undoubtedly had a very great mother and grandmother who instilled these qualities in him that we are talking about. And likewise, Isa alayhi salam, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does the tarbiyat of the prophets, but he does it through means, and he does it through Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam. And one of our teachers, he mentioned that in Surah Kahf, because on Friday we're supposed to recite Surah Kahf, so I'll finish with this. In Surah Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Khidr alayhi salam, he killed a child. And then he told Musa alayhi salam that this child was a kafir, and this child would have grown up to be very rebellious and horrible to the extent that he would have driven his own parents out of Islam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted me to end his life so that he will enter Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in place of this boy, Allah will give him a better child to his parents. In the tafsir of that ayah, in the commentary, the scholars, they mention that when this boy, he was killed by Khidr alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the parents a daughter, and from her lineage, as many as 70 prophets were given to Bani Israel. So the ulama of Al-Azhar, they mentioned that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever he mentions the male in the Quran, after that he mentions the female in a better way. So all these great qualities we're talking about of Ali ibn Abidin and Isa alayhi salam, undoubtedly their mothers had a great role in that. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Sayyidah Maryam, وَلَيْسَ ذَكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that the male is not like the female. And some of the scholars, they say that what this means is that the female is better than the male. That the female child, Maryam alayhi salam, who was given to her parents, she was better than any male child that Allah could have given instead of Maryam alayhi salam. So whenever Allah mentions the male in the Quran, he then mentions the female in a better way. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to act upon what's been said. May Allah help us to instill the qualities of Isa alayhi salam and Zainul Abidin. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless their mothers and the women in their lives who also instill these qualities in them, inshallah.